Hey gamers, Critical Blindside here, and I'm here to tell you that the Xbox is way better than the PlayStation because it's got the Kinects and it's got all the best games. And actually, I just jumped the ship, and I wanted to tell you how the PlayStation 4 is way better than the Xbox One. Primarily because of the name of the Xbox One. I mean, is it the Xbox or the Xbox One? I don't even know. The PlayStation 4 is way faster RAM, and it's just faster, and it's just better. And I just want to say that PC gaming is actually the way that the developers wanted you to play the game. I mean, why would you want to play the game on an inferior system like something like a console? And like, consoles are way laggy when it comes to first-person shooters, and if you compare a first-person shooter on a PC to a console, the PC will win 9 times out of 10. And actually, the Wii is outselling everything right now, and it's got the Mario and it's got Zelda. So if you want to play the best game franchises, you have to play anything with Nintendo. And do you see how annoying that is? And that really is the crux of the console wars. That was just a little parody, obviously, of a stereotypical person talking about the console wars, but it really, that's what it sounds like to me and other people. It's completely unnecessary, and I want to kind of show you guys where it started and why it keeps getting fueled and why it doesn't matter and why I think we'll be a better gaming community without it altogether. But before I jump into the console wars discussion, I'd like to discuss a little bit about the game I'm playing, which is Dust and Elysian Tale. And usually what I do whenever I do one of these videos is I start a game I've never played before. One, it kind of gives me a chance to play one of these games I probably wouldn't have before. And I just kind of boot the game up, start recording, and fumble around, record myself playing video, then I cut the video up, and then I turn it into a YouTube video. Well, with this one, I turned it on, and I played for about 5 seconds just to make sure I had all the mechanics down, and looked down at the clock, and it's 2 hours later. I got wrapped up in the game, didn't even know it, and got lost in it. So that goes to speak how good this game is. An excellent platforming kind of a brawler, and what is even more spectacular is that I'm pretty sure that one guy did like 90% of this entire game. This is like a labor of love, and pardon my ignorance, I don't know who it is, but I do know that it was majorly developed by one person primarily, and just some of the art assets and that kind of things were done out of house for him or whoever it was. For a major studio, it looks amazing. For one guy, it's absolutely incredible. The game looks amazing. The voice acting is incredible. And the action is very crisp and very tight. Now, the controls are tad bit clunky. And whenever I mean that, I don't mean that it's unplayable or that, takes away any major points. But if I had to complain about anything, it would be that the controls are just a little bit laggy, but nothing to take any kind of major points away. So I definitely recommend picking this one up. And I know I'm kind of late to this Dust party. It's been out for a little while, but I think that I can still make a recommendation based on my gameplay, just because so far it's been an absolutely amazing game. Another game that I've just been lost into. And I'm really starting to dig these indie games. This is kind of like one of my first tastes of completely independent games, these last couple of games that I've been playing for this YouTube channel. And it's been a real treat to just kind of see the passions of a couple people come to fruition on the screen, and you can definitely tell what they wanted and what direction they were going in. And it's nice to see something that wasn't made by a committee. It's nice to see some personality injected into these games and some love and some passion, which I think is kind of lacking in some of these major releases. So definitely pick it up. I think it's still on Humble Bundle for another couple days, which, again, from my last video, amazing Humble Bundle. Definitely pick it up. So without further ado, we'll get on to this console wars discussion. So if you're like me, you may be puzzled as to why the console wars rage on and where they kind of started from. What I think it is the average person happens to buy a console. Whenever the Xbox 360 and the PS3 both came out, a lot of people couldn't afford both. This was the first time that consoles reached the $300 mark, and a lot of families couldn't afford both, so we kind of had to choose. So a lot of us either went by what our friends had, which is what I did, or maybe release titles, or we just kind of bought into the hype and bought whichever one that we ended up buying. That being said, obviously I don't know statistics or anything like that, but from my experience, most of the people who are on one side of the console wars, they're on that side because they happen to own that particular piece of equipment. And that is the sole reason why they happen to fight for one side or the other, which, if you step back and think about it, is absolutely ridiculous. That you happen to own that piece of equipment, therefore anything else is inferior and stupid. So it's almost, I liken it to something the opposite of buyer's remorse. So a lot of us are familiar with buyer's remorse. It's when you buy the newest iPhone, 6 months later the new one comes out and you kind of feel bad about your purchase, or maybe you didn't research good enough or hard enough and you bought something and you kind of feel bad because you could have got a better deal or a better whatever. So everyone's pretty much familiar with buyer's remorse, but the opposite of buyer's remorse, and I looked and I don't think there's a term for this, or at least I'm not familiar with it, is whenever you buy something and you are so proud of it that anything else becomes instantly inferior and you can make fun of it and there's no way it could top it, when in all reality what you are making fun of and what you have are very similar, aka the Xbox or the PlayStation. I mean, these two things, in the grand scheme of things, the PS4 and the Xbox One, are pretty much identical. And now they do differ slightly, and when you buy something that expensive, you want to get the most out of your money. But I argue that we shouldn't focus on the minuscule differences between the consoles or PC gaming or anything like that. Really what we should be focusing on is, does it work in the room that we're going to put it in? Are the features compatible with what I've already bought? And those are major decisions now, because most of us have a room that we're going to be putting it in that already has an established probably TV and all this other entertainment peripherals. So that's a major factor now, whenever it really wasn't before. And both Xbox, PlayStation, and other game consoles have benefits, and they have things that go against them. So you have to choose what's right for you, and if you can spring for it, go with both. I'm tired of this sports team mentality that either you're for us or against us. If you're not for the home team or whatever it is, then you are the scum of the earth. We don't want anything to do with you, and you're below us. Geek gamers like us, we tend to not do things like that. We tend to kind of rise above those common stereotypes, except for a couple of situations, Mac versus PC, console wars, all these frivolous things. We just can't seem to rise above it, and we can't seem to distance ourselves from this childish nature. We see the same thing with Marvel versus DC. Here's the thing. If you like it, buy it. If you don't, then you don't have to voice your opinion and tell everyone how bad the other thing is. If it's not for you, it's not for you, and you'll have to realize that there are other people in this world who may be different than you and may have a different opinion, different wants and needs. That doesn't make them inferior, it just makes them different, and that's what we really need to be focusing on. I think that every single time these console wars are brought up and, focused on, I think people on the outside just kind of look in and just shake their head, because it doesn't matter. I primarily play PC games, and PC gamers can be some of the worst about this because they're elitist pricks most of the time. So whereas normally you get the Xbox versus PlayStation and they're just bickering back and forth, the PC people, some of them can just be absolutely just nails on a chalkboard. It's just because PCs can render in higher quality. They always have been. PCs will always be ahead of consoles just because of the bleeding edge nature of PC builds. But that has its cons as well. It's expensive. You have to deal with crashing. You have to deal with all these other things that the consoles don't have to deal with. So this is my point, is that there are good things and there are bad things about every single system, and you have to evaluate what's good for you
And if it's not good for you, fine. You don't have to go on and spout hatred for the other thing. And I know that the bad apples are usually the most vocal, and sometimes that's all that's heard. So if I own a PlayStation and I hear an Xbox guy spouting how all the PlayStation people are Hitler and should die in camps, then that's all I hear. So I think, man, these Xbox guys are assholes. And really, it's just the loud vocal idiots that the other side hears, and then they draw conclusions based on that. So we really just need to stop this bickering about console wars. Really, in all reality, the new consoles, they're virtually identical. There's not much difference between them. Just a little bit in the hardware and a little bit of the extra stuff that you get tacked along. PC gamers are completely different. So obviously, if you're a hardcore PC gamer, you're not going to touch consoles, or maybe you would. Who knows? And then if you're a Nintendo fanboy, then fine. I do have to give Nintendo fanboys a little bit of credit. Usually they're the best when it comes to this whole console war thing. They usually tend to stay out of it and just let the other people do it. But I'm just tired of this dude bro mentality that my binary choice is better than your binary choice, and because you didn't choose what I chose, you are somehow inferior. So we just need to kind of rise above all that, and I think the gaming community would be better for it. So that about wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for clicking on my video. Go ahead and subscribe if you like what you heard, and you'll hear more of it. Thank you guys so much again, and we'll see you next time. Blindside out.